Okay, so now that we've got that out of the way, I will go ahead and introduce our guest of honor here, Adam Dougherty, who is the proprietor of KreatureKid Studios. I hope you've all had a chance to look over their website. There's some pretty amazing stuff over there, but at some point during this discussion, we may hop over and just look at a few things. Um, Without further ado, I'll just turn it right over to Adam and we can kind of just start chatting. This will be a pretty informal discussion, and I would encourage you all to jump in with questions and comments and pick Adam's brain for as much as you can, learn what you can. And, I think he was kind of interested in learning some about us as well. So, Adam, feel free to ask us any questions. Just to get started, maybe you could go over a little bit of your background and what got you into this in the first place.
Cool. Well, hi everyone. Thanks for having me. Thanks for watching. Um, so yes, my name's Adam Dougherty. I'm a creature effects artist, sculptor, designer, kind of a little bit of everything. I've been doing this professionally for like I don't know, 20 years now. As starting just as a sculptor and slowly moving my way from a hobbyist, a model maker, to a character designer and now a shop owner doing my own thing. But like I'm sure a lot of us here, I started as a model maker doing model kits, right? I grew up with older parents, so I started, I was introduced to the Aurora monster model kits is kind of where I come from. Some of you might know that was, the first monster model kits available in the 60s were the classic monsters, Frankenstein, Dracula, the Mummy, the Creature from the Black Lagoon. So I grew up doing those, and then collecting monster toys as well, and painting model kits, entering model competitions and things in the child's painting section. So I was assembling and painting, and then I was encouraged by my brother and some friends in the monster model community to try sculpture, because a lot of people noticed that I was very good at painting. I was winning all the competitions and stuff. I was just really into it. So then I tried my hand at sculpture, small scale model kits, and I just fell in love with that. And I really just stuck with it and had a knack for sculpture. So then I started to make my own model kits, and my own small scale figures. And that started in high school when I started sculpting for companies, getting commissions to sculpt for companies. And then just, it just became sculpting for hobbyists, small model kit companies, to sculpting for licensed, companies doing monsters, to where my models were in the hobby shops on store shelves. And then at 21 or at 20, when I turned 20, I kind of was like, well, I've done everything I can in a small desk in my bedroom. I need to graduate to, how do you do this on a large scale? How do you make this a career? So that was the move to LA to work in a special effects shop, to show and to just learn how to do, full size things, the big stuff, basically just big model kits, essentially, is all I wanted to do. So I did the film industry, special effects stuff for 10 years out in LA. Did all kinds of movie stuff, and, started, just painting and sculpting and learning the steps of making stuff out of foam rubbers and what animatronics need to go into things and how to perform them on screen, and making suits for a performer to wear, and kind of just learning all that stuff. And then I moved back home a few years ago and got an opportunity to do a bid on doing all the special effects for a movie, and I got it. And then it just turned into, now I'm stuck with a shop and I have to figure out how to like make it work. So we've been doing KreatureKid, my shop here, for 2 years now. We're on our fifth movie so far. Our first movie we did, Onyx the Fortuitous, which was the one where it gave me the foundation to start a shop. and it gave me the freedom to just basically the director and writer and star of the movie said, here's the script, you just do your thing. These, I need all these monsters, I need devils, I need a demon, you just do that, we need it in a year. So I just lost my mind for a year. And that is now coming out in theaters this Thursday, October 19th. If any of you are interested, here in the US at least, it's a Fathom Events, one night only at 7 p.m. and at 10 p.m. at any AMC or theater near you. You could look it up at onyxthemovie.com, I believe is the website. I could drop that in later at the end of the talk. But that's the Creature Kids first movie with all the creature effects that we did. All puppets, all practical. Hopefully it works, and hopefully more work will come from it. That's kind of the goal. But we've done some more movies and stuff that we can't show yet because they're not out. But I'm really proud of the stuff that this shop is doing so far, and the kind of team I'm figuring out, trying to assemble and make it work in Colorado. We're the only creature effects shop here, and it's during quarantine, it kind of made me realize, like, oh, you don't have to be in LA to do this stuff anymore. It's not the 60s where you make a monster and you drive it to the lot to shoot, on a stage. That's not a thing anymore. Everything films in other countries and in other states. So no matter what, you build a monster, you pack it, you ship it. So I was like, oh, you do that anywhere now. Doesn't have to be LA. So fortunately, Colorado seems to be, there's a lot of creatives here. There's a lot of shops that have the materials that we need here. So that's a huge factor of it. And it's pretty, and it's somewhat affordable. So seems to be working. So that's where I'm at now.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was curious. I was watching some interviews and stuff in preparation for this, and I noticed that your brother also had kind of a background in sculpting and stuff. Could you tell us a little bit about that and how that might have informed your own, rise
Yeah,
into
so
that?
so my older brother was a big horror fan growing up. His passion, his main interests were the Alien and Predator movies. That was a big one for him. He loved the 80s horror because he grew up in the 80s. But my parents loved the classic Universal monsters, and that's just kind of what for some reason as a kid, that's just what I stuck with, is Frankenstein and stuff. But he worked at a local Halloween company that's still here to this day, Distortions Unlimited. And he started out as a painter there in high school, and he kind of got to see how they would, make giant stone molds and run latex and paint it and trim it and blast out assembly line Halloween props. And he started bringing that kind of home. So we had tools, we had clay laying around. He sculpted just a handful of things in his time, but the clay was there. So when I was like, I want to try this, it was sitting there. He taught me how to use calipers and sculpting in a mirror and kind of a couple of the tricks. So the first two pieces I did when I was a kid were full-size Halloween masks, and then I got my hands on Super Sculpey and tiny tools, and I just really enjoyed that a lot more. The hard materials as opposed to rubbers and things. Coming from a model kit and a toy interest, that's kind of where I gravitated towards. But then now it's kind of back to that full-size sculpture, making things out of rubber, and a bit more like Halloween style of building things. But yeah, that was a big influence, was him being interested. I mean, I was in a very creative household. My parents, Halloween was the one time a year where we went crazy. The whole house was decorated. My parents, we would go to every haunted house and buy all these Halloween masks, and it was just a huge thing. So I was definitely groomed to be into the spooky stuff.
There was another thing it sounds like you were really interested in, and it sounds like it's kind of stuck with you as a lifelong thing. I wanted to comment on too because I thought there was some really interesting uh, things to be learned from your views on it. Just from another interview, you talked a lot about antiques and how much you love antiques. Your parents really loved antiques, and you had some interesting thoughts, I think, on how that relates to your work and stuff.
Yeah,
The permanence of old things versus how quickly things fail these days, produced items and stuff.
yeah.
Yes.
I mean, of course, technology is the worst. We can all agree, I think. But as I'm looking at my 3D printers right now, um, but yeah, my mom is very into was very into antique collecting, history, um, being a monster kid who loves the 40s and 50s horror. Obviously, that gives me my interest in antiques and history and how things were done back then. And you know, we can watch a monster movie from the 1950s today, and in my opinion, it still looks, a lot of the creatures do hold up. The creature from the Black Lagoon, who's my favorite monster of all time, that creature suit still to this day is considered the best practical creature suit in a film. And the fact that they used the most primitive materials back then and still had something that no one has made anything comparable to yet, um, digitally or otherwise. So, um, I mean, I incorporate a lot of old things into my work. Sometimes I even have sculptures that are holding pieces that are old. Um, I'm a big antique collector. When I take you out my shop, some of my tools I use are old tools for our foam running. We have an antique ringer we use to wring out our foam, and it's because still works perfect. So, when I recently did a trip to London and I visited one of the creature shops that does Doctor Who, uh, and I was like, "What do you have this old ringer for?" And he goes, "Yeah, that's what we use for run when we bake foam latex. All this, you have to wring out all the moisture inside." And he goes, "Yeah, it will always work." And I'm like, "This is genius. That's exactly what I want." So I went and got one for my shop. Um, but I have I traditionally sculpt. I start as a traditional sculptor, uh, but I also do a lot of my concept designs digitally. I like the balance. I know a lot of shops are, even life casting actors, they just do digital scans now and 3D print the full size actor's bust to do makeups on. When I've visited other larger shops, I see they're starting to eliminate a lot of their mold making department because they're just printing molds now and they're digitally sculpting makeup appliances and printing those. Um, and that's just that, I don't see the fun in that. It sounds like you're just maintaining 3D printers all day. I have my printers. I use them occasionally for a lot of my small scale things or like building of products. But um, the reason I got into this is because of the photos I see of those guys sculpting a giant Tyrannosaurus Rex at Stan Winston's, or Rick Baker sculpting the American Werewolf in London, makeups and puppets and stuff. So that, and or like Jim Henson's, that's the big influence for me is Jim Henson's Creature Shop for Labyrinth and Dark Crystal and the Storyteller series and all that stuff. So um I'm really trying to, granted, not break the ground with practical effects, but more so I see all the shops and what they're offering for practical effects and digital enhancements of things and stuff, and I just go, yeah, but none of it is as good as what was Stan Winston was doing or what Jim Henson was doing. So, um, granted, it's probably not the smartest business move, but I want to be the shop that can offer old school effects in that sense, traditionally, and kind of also, I take on jobs because I want to learn those steps. Like, I want to make a zombie puppet. That just sounds fun. I've never done it before. And if when I did it, I wanted to do it their tradition. Like, what would Jim Henson's shop have done if they were handed this job? Um, Not so much just what the outcome will look like, but also what steps would they have done to make this? Because that just sounds fun. You can't go work in that shop anymore, and if you do, you're just cleaning up 3D printed parts all day. That's all the Marvel stuff now. All the everything is just it's just an assembly line shop of body sanding 3D printed parts, and that just doesn't sound fun to me. I want to build characters and build creatures and have fun pushing clay around and painting and gluing hair on and making costumes and stuff. So that's kind of what my shop's business model is kind of you know offering something that there's a hole in the market of practical effects shops that are offering, and I can spot it. And I'm trying to build a reputation and a style of practical effects that I think people still want to see in movies, but you just don't, because the shops don't do it, because it's not easy, right? It's hard.
That's very true. And I suspect, given your visibility of Hollywood, you probably have a pretty good idea of where that absence lies, as far as like you've probably seen it over that time you were there. You kind of saw some of those skills dwindling within the
Oh yeah.
shops you worked with.
Oh, so fast. I mean, I got pulled out of the sculpture room and thrown into the computer room pretty quickly, and I was like, this sucks. It's just an office job, you know? And yeah, I got into this industry because I loved that stuff that I saw. And then, every once in a while you get a job where you're kind of doing something fun. But then you watch the movie and you're like, oh, they just covered it with CG, or they cut the whole scene. And it's just kind of like, well, that's not fun. What's the fun in that? So um I've kind of been really happy working with smaller independent films, because they don't have the Hollywood money where they're just like, CG over it, right? Or cut the scene. We don't need it, even though we just spent millions of dollars building a creature for that moment. You know, Independent films, they are anything that they can grab onto to have in the movie to make their movie better. They're going to put in there and they're going to show it, right? So
Mhm.
and they also were giving me full creative freedom, where a big Hollywood machine will come to you and the designs are already done. They hire their own artists. They have 3D files, and they just need someone to physically make something that'll be there, and then put green dots all over it. That's just the worst.
Right. Now, as far as the independents, are there typical like casting houses that or production companies that you tend to work with along those lines? I mean, I know by the very nature of it being independent, a lot of it's going to be small groups coming at you, but are there certain ones in particular you tend to work with so
I mean,
far? Or,
surprisingly, so far it's all crowd-funded movies I've been getting.
huh.
I mean, the first movie, Onyx the Fortuitous, was a Kickstarter, and he raised all his funding online. Um, and then it's so far it's just been independently funded movies, which is and without distribution or anything. They
Hmm.
just want to make the movie, and then they're going to figure out how to sell the movie and who wants to show it, essentially, which is really exciting for me. I really like that a lot, because it's like a surprise every time. Like, we did all this work for this current film, and who, like, they're submitting it to festivals, and who knows what the outcome will be or what festivals would be interested in. So it makes it a little bit more exciting for me, because you never know when something will blow up or not, versus if a studio came to you, you're already like, oh, okay, it's already for Hulu, so it's already there.
Right.
It's not very fun. Um,
No, I
but
was I was curious. And again, if anybody has questions, raise your hand. I'd love to get some other people in here, ask them some questions. Our board assembled a few, but we definitely, could stand to have some of our audience ask some stuff. Just real quick along those lines, I was curious what your, if you had to guess so far, percentage wise, like how much of your work is props versus uh, puppets versus, stuff that's going to be on screen versus your toy lines, things like that? Like, what would you say your proportions of all that kind of work are?
Right now it's a lot of puppets. I really, when a company comes to me or like a filmmaker, I really try to convince them to do puppets because no one else does. Um, you go to another shop and they'll go, well, it should be a makeup, you know. When I was first approached for the first movie, he goes, yeah, I kind of want some makeups for these ghouls and this for this, and like a guy in a suit for this devil. And I was like, no, 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 puppets, man. When was the last time you saw puppets in a movie? And he's like, yeah, you know what? You're right. That'd be weird, wouldn't it? I'm like, yeah, it'd be really weird. And I think that's what makes what would make a project stand out, right? Is doing something unexpected and kind of the more difficult way. A lot of people think building something like that is more expensive, um, but it's surprisingly all about the same. Um, so I really, um, I get makeup things every once in a while, but I really hate them. I don't like makeups. I feel like any shop can do a makeup in this industry, so I don't really have an interest in that. But not a lot of shops I've seen are doing very interesting, unique puppets. So that's what I'm really trying to get known for is the puppet company. Um, but we just recently did our first creature suit on a performer, big giant suit with an animatronic head. Um, that was really cool. I'm really proud of that piece. Um, and we all, a few puppets in there as well. This next project we're currently working on is uh, a very advanced animatronic puppet that needs to speak dialogue throughout the entire movie. So that's kind of exciting for me because that's like, like a Hoggle kind of character from Labyrinth where he's, you know, we gotta sit there. We gotta have three people performing his dialogue alone who know the script and can speak it and make his lips do it and make his eyes emote what he's saying to a actor standing there looking at him, which is just a dream job. That's something you haven't seen since the 80s or something. So I'm really excited for that and nervous because that could look terrible pretty easily. But in the end, people are coming to me because, I feel like CG, granted, um, maybe, I don't know, maybe it costs the same, maybe it's more expensive, maybe it's cheaper, but there's just something there that's just not, they both have their limitations and they both, CG character talking, I think we'll just get lost in the shuffle. But a movie where a person's talking to a creature that's speaking dialogue and it's something someone built, even if it looks like an animatronic and it looks like a puppet, I think those things stick in people's minds a little bit more, especially kids. I know that's what stuck in my mind is like them interacting with an actual like ET, right? That's there. Versus like baby Groot who's just run around like a little CG cartoon. There's nothing there. So it's just I don't know, it's just you don't walk out of a theater thinking of that thing. So um, you know, practical effects are practical effects no matter what. You could spot them, but I think that's what makes them so special and cool. Um,
Well, it's hard to imagine an actor responding on screen in real time effectively to, a tennis ball on the end of a stick.
it
And,
just
and
doesn't
it
sound
it
fun,
shows it shows in a lot of the movies. You can kind of see it how they're just not quite engaged right.
Yeah, and you could just tell they blasted out, and it just, there's just something about it. There's something about practical effects that are just the coolest, so fun, I mean, it's so hard. It's the worst. But it's all for that shot in the end. I mean, I'm currently posting promotional photos for this Onyx movie, and just the photos alone from just I mean, all the photos I've been posting on my social media is just screen captures from what they filmed on that day. And I'm like, this is crazy. It looks like what I see AI illustrations are doing, but we made that. We put the hair, we put the eyebrows on that, and we put the slime coming out of that mouth. And the lighting and the background of the foggy cemeteries and stuff, it's still kind of surreal that, you know, granted, I lost my mind in that year of making those things, but those final photos of those characters right there without the puppeteers or anything, and it just looks like a zombie standing in a cemetery or a demon in a box in a spooky mansion. It's just, it makes it all worth it, you know.
Sure.
And knowing that no CG guy got his hands on my thing and tweaked it or anything, I'm like, that's what you want, right?
Sure.
I've got a
Uh,
question.
yeah, go ahead.
Obviously you make a lot of unusual creatures and things. Do you often have to incorporate, or what's been like the most unusual materials you've ended up having to use as part of the things you're building, trying to create the look or the visual, the feel of something that's not normal?
I mean, all the materials we use are pretty standard stuff for everything. Our first job, we did all the puppets and things out of silicone, which is crazy expensive, super heavy, but it looks really nice, right? It's the closest to skin there is. It's translucent, light absorbs into it, so it looks really nice. But we had our issues with it on set. So when we got our next job, our what I've always wanted to learn and what has always been used for this kind of stuff is foam latex, but it's a finicky material. It's like baking bread. It's like a recipe. The altitude for Colorado affects it versus how it's made in LA. You got to whip it in mixers. You got to bake it in the oven. All kinds of stuff can go wrong, but it's super lightweight. It moves beautifully like foam or like skin. It wrinkles really nice, right? Basically, any animatronic creature face you see in a movie is foam latex, foam rubber. But it falls apart quickly, doesn't last very long. Um, it's light, it's cheap, it moves beautifully. So it kind of has its kind of positives and negatives as well. So that's kind of, I mean, those two materials are like, you know, there's latex rubbers, and then there's silicone rubbers, and there's foam latex, which is fluffy rubbers. I mean, no matter what, you have to build a skeleton, you have to build your skin, and you have to add your hair and your costume, right? We haven't had anything too weird. I've done some stuff where it's like playing with blobs and goos and magnets and things for the Creep Show television show. We had like a blob episode. And you know, that stuff's fun. I like playing with weird things, but like, you know, it's just kind of each creature is a different approach. And everything, you know, depending on the size and the budget, it all factors into how we approach something and what materials we use and all that kind of stuff. But right now, like for our first one, it was all silicones. Our second one, it was all foams. I was like, we're not using any rubbers, we're only using foams, and we're gonna figure this out. We're gonna learn how to do it, and then we'll be the foam shop, right? So this next one for this creature that needs to do all this dialogue and this puppet, that's all going to be foam as well, because it needs to move so naturally. But like like an issue with foam too is through the duration of the film, especially where something needs to speak dialogue throughout the 3 weeks of shooting, it'll start to tear and will start to fall apart. So you need to constantly be like maintaining these things, because basically, like I do a lot of fine art pieces, and that's like, okay, this piece needs to last 20 years, right? But then we do a lot of the film stuff, and that piece needs to last through the shoot, and then it's just going to fall apart. And they do. By the end of the shot, by the end of the film, our stuff is beat and covered in dried out slime, and it's tearing and stuff because you got a guy in it and he's swinging around, he's doing the actions and stuff. But the only thing that matters is what is caught on camera, and that's the whole point of these things, is we're only building it to last a few moments on screen, and that's it. But the fine art stuff, that's where it's like, okay, it needs to be a specific kind of silicone that won't deteriorate. So it's like a platinum rubbers that have a library lifespan. You know, it needs to be sturdy. It needs to be, you know, you got to do all this stuff to think about something like that. Or for a toy or like a product where it needs to be like, okay, it's going to be handled. You know, it needs to be scratch resistant, you know, and all that kind of stuff. So it's a combo of materials, but then it is a combo of like, what's the application it's going into? You know what I mean?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Scott, you have a question.
Yeah, I was curious about scale. I come from the toy company, so you know,
Oh, cool.
small, but it sounds like most of your stuff is like human scale for actors and interacting with live people. But is it all, or is there ways that you skip around in scale land?
Oh yeah, totally. I could show you guys the miniature we just did. So the finale of this movie, this last movie, was a guy in a creature suit. Oh wait, maybe I can't show it since it's recording.
It's recorded. I wouldn't.
Yeah, if it's recorded, yeah, never mind. I can't show you guys because
Aw.
we're recording. I forgot.
That's all good.
But for the finale of this movie, it's this giant, you know, all the townspeople are in this neighborhood or in this building, and they've merged into a giant blob monster, right? So we did a practical full-size element. And then we did a 1/7 scale miniature of the mass. So that will shoot on green. Those will be composited into the shot and digitally modified so it fits in there. I think that might be. I mean, I did a little stop motion composite experiment on my own, but I haven't dabbled too much into miniatures for film as like kind of like Star Wars like or anything. Usually a film that comes to me doesn't have the time to explore that kind of route, right? But that's why I like to do miniatures in my own filmmaking ventures, because you don't get approached with that stuff a lot. I have a tiny tugboat. A little short film I'm working on is a 1930s jungle adventure horror comedy. And I kind of did that because I've always wanted to do a jungle film, but I've always wanted to make a tiny volcano with a tiny boat, and like drop a smoke bomb in there and shoot it in slow motion and stuff. I've always wanted to do that. So this is like my experiment just for fun miniature work for a shot like that. But I still dabble in the toy stuff. I just recently did a new model kit of the Revenge of the Creature for a company. And we are currently working on a miniature diorama for a client right now. That's, I guess, kind of in my fine art section of what the company does. And it was a full 3D printed building, and it's so much work. It's gonna have all the characters. It's from an animated television show, and it's a client came to me and he goes, "Hey, I want a miniature, kind of like a train diorama of the building from the show for my office." Okay, and I go, "Cool. Can I go crazy with it?" And he's like, "Yeah, you can do whatever you want." So what I'm doing is it's a full 3D I Spy diorama of the building from the show, every character from the show, and then a hidden list of find 5 gnomes, or find Bigfoot's footprints, and find this and find that. And you have to walk around this giant plexiglass case with this huge diorama, and there's scenes going on. All the characters are doing something, right? Kind of like when you go to the museum and you'd see like the cowboy miniatures, and all the guys, like those guys are cooking and those guys are hunting, right? I've always wanted to do one of those, and I've never had the opportunity. So it's been so much work, because all of that has to be digitally sculpted and printed, and then traditionally painted. We're gonna flock the grass, we're gonna do the dirt. It's so much work. But we have the building and all the accessories printed, and I have someone out there now just tediously painting all this little tiny little tables and little things. It's the worst. But in the end,
Sounds like you love it though.
yeah, in the end, it's going to be a beautiful piece. But it's always the process, you know. It's kind of just what it is. So, yeah, I mean, I kind of play with all of it. I do a lot of I'm trying to eventually figure out as a businessman or whatever, when I do a film and I design a character for a film, how do I then get the license to that film and use the the 3D files I did of that character to then do statues or toys or products, small scale, of that thing I just did. I think that'd be really cool if I could be the creature shop that did the character and also sell licensed merch of that character. I got to figure that out someday. I don't know. That's later on.
Sounds like lawyer stuff.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it sounds like I need a contract.
Well, fortunately, if you're working with the smaller, independents, maybe they'd be more apt to give you licensing on stuff like that.
That's exactly my thought. But what I kind of run into is, granted, they make the movie and the director or whoever, right, as he goes, this is my movie, but it all boils down to what production company buys the rights to that movie, because then they own the rights, right? And then I got to get licensing through whoever buys it, right? If Netflix buys the movie, how do you get licensing rights from Netflix? And then how does that work when I sell a collectible of that character? Does Netflix get their cut? I don't know.
That actually kind of segues into a question one of the board members had, which was if you could, and this is a bit of a paragraph here, I apologize. So just, I'm going to start reading it. Tell us about the process from having something commissioned to starting work. Do you need permission from the creator to reproduce their work, or would your client get that? If nobody provides detailed data to work from, how do you make that data? Are you ever asked to just make a scary monster and allowed to do whatever you want? You did answer that bit earlier, but as far as kind of just the process, how does that go as far as, when you're approached by a client through to the point of producing the thing? Like, kind of what's that look like?
Well, I mean, it really just depends on the piece, right? I'm still trying to figure out, like, when a film company, like when a director comes to me and I make the monsters for his movie, right? I don't think I own any of that. I think he owns all of it. I even bought, because I'm trying to educate myself on this. I mean, granted, I know some owners of shops, but I've always been kind of like hard-headed and like, I'll figure out how to do this on my own. But like, I bought the old auction catalog of Stan Winston's collection after he passed away. And I was looking at it and I was going, okay, these are animatronics that he built for The Lost World. So why does he own them and why doesn't Universal own them? So that means he must have had a contract that said, I keep this raptor, I keep this T-Rex head, you can keep these things. So now I'm like, okay, so he, ahead of time, before he even gets the job, he has to decide, okay, what do I retain that's mine for promotion of my shop? And what's the studios that they just keep in a warehouse somewhere? And I'm still trying to figure that out. I mean, like when if I do a fine art piece for a client, it's kind of just unspoken. That's a one of a kind piece. Why would I do that again? It's terrible to make it. I keep all the molds. I have all those, and that's kind of like my thing that I retain. That's, if it ever came to it, I could always make another one. But for the most part, usually when I make something and I make one of it, I'm already over it. I don't have a desire to make another one. I could care less. And usually I don't like it enough to where I would want to even have one. So the molds, and even if I was to make something of a duplicate or something, I don't know. The molds to me is the thing, because those will last forever, right? If it's a nice fiberglass mold or a nice stone mold, that lasts forever. That's the best representation of what I sculpted. A casting out of that, no matter what, will deteriorate over time. But normally it's if a client comes to you and it's a fine art piece, yes, that's a one of a kind piece, unless he wants multiples of them. For a movie, I don't, so far it's just been like the production companies just want to keep the stuff. And I have no room. So I'm like, yeah, you do whatever you want. I don't care. I don't want to keep looking at it. I just spent all this time building it. I just want it gone. But I know that's probably not smart, because I look at the Stan Winston catalog and I'm like, oh, he just got $500,000 for a Raptor that he built for the Lost World. So I go, okay, in 30 years from now, is this going to be a huge hit and I'm going to kick myself in the butt? I don't know. So yeah, that's still like, I build things and I'm still thinking they suck because I'm very hard on myself. I'm just like, oh, this is terrible. And this is going to be a thing. It's cool looking for the moment, but I'm like, in 30 years, it doesn't matter. But you never know, right? Who knows when something can be a cult classic, and I'll have some kids knocking on my door when I'm an old man asking if I have any molds or any castings of that character left,
Right.
So it is something I have to start thinking of. Or even owning some of the IP if a character that I make blows up and turns into the next Pennywise or E.T. or Gizmo or something, right? Where in 20 years, there's going to be a whole section of costumes at Spirit Halloween based on something that I built, and I never see anything from it because I was like, oh yeah, I forgot. I was just screwing around and I made this thing for that movie for no money, and it was fun at the time, and now a bunch of people are rich off of it and I don't see anything from it. So
Sure.
that's just me having to learn how to be a better businessman, which I'm starting to kind of realize is stuff I need to think about. But right now, being only 2 years new into a shop and a business owner, I'm only trying to just produce the best quality stuff at the cheapest price and not really think about the future things. It's more just, how do I get more work coming to my shop and build a reputation, to really do cool stuff. So that's kind of the priority right now.
Well, I was gonna ask before we get too much further along, because I know we've only got about 15 minutes left, 20 minutes or whatever.
Oh, wow. Okay.
If you wanted to do the quick tour of the shop,
Yeah.
and then also if you had that thing you were offering to show off if we weren't recording, so I thought maybe at the end, maybe we could staple that on, like I could end the recording and then let the people who are here today have that little benefit of seeing it live.
That we could do.
Yeah.
Could do.
Okay, great. Well, for now, why don't we just plan on doing the little walkthrough, and then if we've got
Cool.
time left, we can do some more questions.
So this is obviously my messy digital sculpting area. This is let's see. Maybe I can just flip this around. Maybe it'd be smarter. How do you do that? Hey, Maddie, do you know how to flip this around?
Flip which around?
My camera.
Oh, there's another camera on the front.
Oh, you're right. It's a laptop. I'm dumb. So this is my 3D printing area. We just have 2 Form 3s right now. We just got a Bamboo Labs filament printer over there because we need to print a character, like a 3-foot character soon.
Mhm.
So that'll all be on filament. But right now, I love the Form 3s. That's just kind of my go-to. Crazy expensive, but it's so easy, and I never have a failed print. So I just have like a giant wash and cure station lined up. But I mean, so far it's been pretty good. Like I know there's probably better and cheaper options, but Formlabs has saved my butt one too many times to not consistently be with them right now.
I hear a lot of good things about them, for sure.
Oh, I love them. So this is the creature. This is the shop. It's just one big garage, essentially. This table here is the miniature section. So these are all components, 3D printed components of the tiny building we're making for the diorama. So you have the roof, the windows, these are all the walls. It's like a log cabin kind of thing.
Uh-huh.
And over here we have Colleen, who is painting small pieces of it. So this is the base plate of the house. So all the wood planking and steps, and this is kind of where we'll be running all the LEDs and stuff because it needs to light up too. And then this is the little tray. Here's like an example. Here's a little, can you guys see that little tiny
Yep.
plastic chair? Here's a little lantern we're going to try to light up. Ooh, it's so tiny.
Very cool.
So yeah, and these are all screenshots from the show. Different angles of the building for painting and stuff. Our
Thank
wall.
you to Colleen for letting us look into her workspace like that. I know that's always a nerve-wracking thing for some people. So.
This is my wall of mold storage, materials, cups, buckets, clays, armature wires.
Casting heaven.
Oh, it's everything. Just so much. All the money goes right there. Just
yep.
It's brutal. This is a character I have to build for a client. This is a fine art piece. This is from a YouTube TV show he does. So we're starting to rough out the body. I've been sculpting the head here out of clay. So, and this character is an interesting one because I like to overcomplicate everything. The character kind of has like a split personality, and he gets like an angry face. So I thought it'd be fun if there was, so that's his angry face, and then he can spin it, and then on his backside is his normal face. So it'll be a display piece, but the head will be rotatable depending on what facial expression you want. I thought that'd be fun.
Very cool.
So these are just resin eye forms, and this will be silicone with custom made eyes on both sides, hand punched hair, and just a really nice piece for this client's, I don't know, really nice office, I guess.
And this is a YouTube creator, you said.
Yeah. This is another character for him as well, but this is for his channel. He wants I think he's kind of going for like a Pee-wee's Playhouse kind of thing, where there's like puppets that he interacts with in his channel.
Uh-huh.
So this is a computer monster puppet. So this is it's like a monitor, but it's like a face kind of thing. So it's really creepy. Let's see, I blow it out. Yeah.
Perfect.
So this will be hand puppeteered with a mouth, and then the eyes. It needs to be so simple anybody can do it. It's not going to be a performer performing this. So the eyes are just a simple little rod system that anybody can operate, and the mouth is just like a waka waka coming through a false table, and it has big gangly arms, and then the keyboard is its hands with like big fingers, and like he tickles the fingers, and that's how he gets it working. I just thought it'd be funny. I don't know. So that pretty much, he just sends me a sketch. He'll just text me a sketch, and he goes, how do I want to make this thing? And then he just gives me kind of free range to just interpret that however I want. So far, I send him progress photos, and we kind of spitball ideas and go back and forth. So that's kind of cool. Dream client, essentially. And he doesn't bug me very much, so that's the best. Lumber, just got a new air compressor. I'm really excited about that. I upgraded from my little tiny DeWalt thing, so now I'm like a real shop. So that's kind of nice.
Now, what do you do? A lot of cabinetry type stuff, or is it mostly just armatures and things for the
That's
puppets?
mostly armatures, but we do some woodwork. We're building some custom crates for packaging for one of my projects. You have Mariah here working on the kind of tower component of this thing, which will be more like a brain and ears on a tower, I think. Like the computer is his face, and the tower is his brain and his hearing, and then the keyboard is his fingers. I think that'd be kind of fun. I don't
Very
know.
cool.
So it's really weird. You have Jake here. Jake is doing a fiberglass mold, epoxy resin fiberglass molds on the computer creature's arm. We just did one arm, or it's going to do two of them for both sides. It's such a little gangly thing, you'll never know the difference. A pile of skeletons and fake rope. We're making fake lightweight rope for a puppet, and he's looked like it weighs 1,000 pounds, but super lightweight for a performer. This is our foam oven and mixing station, and our my big old ringer here for all our foam latex running and baking components. You can see here, this is a tongue out of foam, just kind of the material. So it's essentially baking bread. It's mixing all these ingredients. You whip it, you get it to a certain height, mixing air into it, and then that's when you bake it overnight. And then you have to wring out all the moisture. You have to wash it because there's a lot of crud in it and stuff after baking it. And you clean it. And we also mix like vanilla scents into it. So if it's going on someone's face, it doesn't smell bad. It kind of has a sulfury smell. So when we bake foam, the whole shop just smells like a fart. It's the worst.
And it sounds like it took some work trying to figure out how to optimize it for your altitude, you said earlier.
Yeah, and we're still figuring it out. But you know, we did a full creature suit and puppets and stuff out of foam, and it came out really nice. We have our big double mirror here for performers, so when he was in his creature suit, he could see himself performing and moving and figuring out how to make it work best and stuff. And then, of course, we have our TV and all our VHSs, because in this shop, we only play movies so we can sit and discuss the practical effects that we see in them. I'm a big, I try to really push always having something visually to where I can stop and be like, hey guys, look, how did they do this? Like, you know, The Gate, that's the first one that comes to mind, where every practical effects technique was used in that movie in the most creative way, forced perspective, miniatures, overscale sets. And you could pause it and still you're like, how did they figure this out? It's incredible. So I mean, it's small, it's cluttered, but seems to be working. I don't know. It's all our tables are on wheels and we flip them and we can push them out of the way when we need to do something. I have to build a giant set of a jungle in there sooner or later. So it's nice because it's all kind of mobile. So we could, you know, I think it's the perfect amount of space, you know.
Honestly, it seemed like a pretty impressive shop space. I mean, all
Hey,
things
thank you.
considered, I've seen a fair amount of them in my time with the APMM and in tours and things that we've gone on. And I mean, I think yours is as good as most I've seen. You know, certainly for the amount of work you guys are doing and the kind of work you're doing, it seems like it's fantastic space.
You know, I'm really proud of it. It was a lot of work, but seems to be working.
Now, as far as employees go, I was curious, like, where do you guys go about finding talent where you're at? I mean, obviously, if you're out in, Hollywood area, you probably can find lots of people that do certain types of work, but like where you're at, what do you
Yeah, I
find to
mean,
be your best resources for that?
that's always been I mean, so far it's just I post on Instagram and I say, hey, is anybody, and I do call outs on social media. And thankfully, because I've been building up my social media platforms for such a long time, that you get one person and they know a few people and they know, so this person might be really good at it. And then it's figuring out people's strengths, people's weaknesses, and kind of figuring out how to maneuver them. And I do have to spend a lot of my time teaching people how to do stuff. But I mean, I think what we're able to achieve so far on the projects we've done is pretty good for, me having to show everyone the steps and learn along the way. I mean, on this last job, we're putting up the Stan Winston school videos all the time. And even I'm sitting down there and I'm going, okay, let's troubleshoot. Why is this not working? Let's watch these videos. Let's see what they're doing. Thankfully, I know enough people from working out there for so long. I can go, well, let me text this guy. Let me message this guy, and we'll troubleshoot and kind of see what we need to change and what we need to do of why this isn't working or what's that. Right now, I'm working with a mechanic out in LA who's doing my animatronics for my face, because, you know, that's where they're at. I have yet to find a mechanic here, but things like welding, painting, mold making, are teachable and easy to learn. And, you know, I've been a mold maker forever, so that's an easy one to just, you know, it's all just learning the steps, learning the materials, reading the bottles, and making sure you shake before you open them. So, you know, it's been kind of fun. It is fun teaching people, and it's fun seeing people figure stuff out and get better at sculpting or mold making or doing this, you know, and kind of everyone's trying to get better at learning the techniques and stuff. And then also with every job, brand new things that we all have to learn. But that's the whole fun of it, you know.
I was curious about the you mentioned the mechanics aspect of it, and I was curious about if Arduino has become more of a factor in any of that stuff. Has anybody in your shop been
No
dealing with
idea.
any of that? Or so that's microprocessors, you know, we're very easily controllable microprocessors where you can write in code and stuff for them, and they have hook up to servos and can control motion
Well, you're talking for like
sensors.
programming stuff, right?
Yeah, it's very simple programming, or at least it can be in theory, but it controls motors and actuators and things like that. I didn't know if that had really made any inroads in animatronics or not.
I mean, I'm sure it has. I am the most non-savvy animatronics guy out there. But I mean, for the stuff that we've done here, it's the most basic servo, and it's just pushing the eyeballs left and right and up and down, and you just make it look okay. That's why I'm really big into traditionally doing it by hand. I mean, you know, even the animatronic character talking dialogue, animatronics and hand operated things are so easy to spot the difference for me. Hand operated things are always better looking and more natural. You cannot get something that natural with animatronics without spending a small fortune. But I really like mouth operated by hand, and then just IMEX operated by servos. That's really nice and simple. Just a little RC remote. This more advanced one, I don't know what we're having to do, but I know he's making. We're having custom remotes built for it, and I can't even imagine how many servos are going into this small little head for full dialogue, eyebrows, cheeks, ears, eyes, blinking. It's gonna be a ton. But it's not, I don't want it programmed. I know it is a whole thing. I think you get into Arduino stuff once you have to program it. And for programming, what they do is they'll basically have the dialogue pre-recorded in shop, hone in the mouth to articulate those words as perfectly as possible, record it, and then you just press play, and the character runs the dialogue on the moment. But I think the puppet needs to perform on the moment with the live actor, because once you program it, it's like a Disney show. The emotions are already preset. There is no exploration of performance on the day with the actors, and I'm all against that. I think the performers need to be there with the actor running the dialogue, and you can explore different ways to say the dialogue. Granted, the lips might not match up as perfectly, but I think you'll get a better performance, a more natural performance, and more possibilities for some nice moments in there. And that's why I think we all love the Muppets, because it was Kermit interacting with people, right? And it's just a hand. but there's so much character to just that little sock puppet. So
Sure.
that's what I'm all about. The techie, the mechanics will say different, but I think it's important to just do it on the day and act as if the puppet is its own actor,
Very cool. Well, since we are getting a little close to the end of our allotted time, I wanted to give you an opportunity to, well, A, if you have any questions for us, you're welcome to ask those, but I also wanted to give you an invitation to promote any of your social media, or I know you do sometimes put out limited like art piece lines, like limited run type individual objects and things, art objects. I wonder if
Yeah,
you wanted to talk about any of that.
we're working on a store right now where I have shirts and little tchotchkes and things, but it's not up yet. And we just posted our new in progress website to make it seem like I'm a real official company now. So that's kind of cool. But we're still working on all the photos and stuff. So it's kind of it's really early on.
I just went to it last night. I'd been looking at the old site, and the new site looks really promising. But
it's
yeah,
not bad, right? It looks
it's nice.
legit.
It's very nice.
I look like a real company.
Yeah, right. Hey, the first one wasn't bad. I liked it actually, but the new one is looking very good. I would encourage you all to go check that out too. Could you remind us what the URL is for that?
It's just KreatureKid.com, creature with a K. KreatureKid.com. It's KreatureKid on all social media and Instagram and Facebook and stuff. Eventually the website, there's the about and the careers and the job application stuff like a normal company. But we're slowly going to be working on that. Right now we're just in a race to have something for people to see for the Onyx release this Thursday, because I hopefully people will watch that and they'll go, who made the monsters? And they'll go to my website and they'll see how to contact me for potential more work. So we're all kind of hustling to just get the homepage up and like the contact me piece up. But yeah, it's going to be a really beautiful site. And then eventually there'll be a store and stuff, and I'm working on it. There's too much stuff.
There's always too much stuff, especially when you're running a business.
Oh, it's the worst.
For sure. Okay, well, yeah, if you had any questions you wanted to ask of the, people assembled here, you're welcome to do that.
I mean, yeah, I'm curious about everybody. I don't think we have the time though, but
no,
I'd like to,
yeah, no, very good point. We are running
I'd like
short
to
on
hear
that. So.
Maybe everyone's what's everyone's end goal or current goal for what they're working towards, whether it's I'm getting out of it and I'm doing it as a hobby, or I'm going to school for something like this, or model making, or this or that. I am curious on what everybody's trying to shoot for.
Anyone want to chime in on that real quick?
Well, I just retired, but I started out as a sculptor and kind of went through the same I ended up working a very technical job for Honda, but on the side, I did a lot of theatrical stuff, practical stuff with puppets, with friends, just for local community theaters. And I love that you've built a company doing that's kind of my dream job, was the stuff you're doing now. That's awesome.
That's so cool. Thank you, Sharon.
You're welcome.
Anyone else out there want to jump in with anything? Scott, you were working for a actual big legit toy company for many years, right?
Yeah, Kenner and then Hasbro.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
Big ones.
Yeah, and I was a model maker and then a pattern maker for them. So like touring your shop, especially the mold making stuff, I'm like, wow, I feel like home. I can smell it,
Yeah. So if you were a model maker for Kenner and stuff, were you doing the sculpture work?
No, there was a sculpting, section. Some of those people I still know. We interacted a lot. But so I did everything but the figures.
Okay.
But you think of a Batmobile, like it's pretty sculptural, and we were doing the vehicles, of course.
Yeah.
And all the accessories and the playscapes and that kind of stuff.
Because I mean, I wanted to teach myself traditional toy sculpting. So I was a wax toy sculptor, doing the little heat wax tools and Oh my gosh, what a nightmare. But I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I did it. I know the waxes. I had my own wax formula that I like to work with. I was really into it. And then I learned digital sculpting. I'm like, well, there you go. This is 1,000 times better.
Yeah, those people were really great. I can still remember getting the originals, you know, these little figures from the sculpting department, and I would be the one to lay them up, you know, so that we had a divided mold. And
Yeah.
like one false move on that finger, buddy, uh-oh, you know,
Yeah.
it was the original, you know. I mean, they could fix stuff, but I was like holding my breath, you know, for days on end trying to get through that stuff so I could get a good mold, you know.
And that's why too, I still think I collect a lot of toys from a while ago, but I love that you can pick up a toy. I mean, growing up as a kid, you had a toy that was traditionally sculpted, that was made. Granted, it was mass produced, injected plastic and stuff, but I can tell the difference between a traditionally sculpted toy and a digitally sculpted toy. On my YouTube, Creature Kid, I just did a toy review of this new Creature from the Black Lagoon action figure that just came out. And I also interview the digital sculptor who did it, because I think it's only the third digital sculpted creature toy ever made. But I was really curious on the process of, he's in another country and he could sculpt the file and go back and forth and make alterations with the company in California. And then they just email the file to China that mass produces it and stuff and prints the prototype. And I was like, you sculpted this figure. Did you ever actually print it? Did you hold it? And he goes, never once. I've only ever seen it digitally and it's gone and that's it, which is fascinating to me. And I also kind of briefly go over the other creature toys of that same scale that were traditionally sculpted and kind of, the differences. I mean, for a character that elaborate and at that scale, I mean, I think he's only 7 inches tall. It's nearly impossible to do traditionally and have it look as good as it did in the movie. But also how it's broken down. I mean, it's fully articulated. There's rubber pieces, there's plastic. It's insane what they can do with toys now. But also it loses a lot of granted, it's 100% movie accurate and there it is, and it's fully posable and stuff. But, I love my, old 60s creature figure that was sculpted in they probably gave them a weekend to sculpt it and then they have to quickly churn it out. Or the original 1963 Creature from the Black Lagoon model kit that was carved out of acetate and a Dremel, like a block of wood. And then I met the sculptor of that piece when he was in his 80s, and I was like, he had his Dremel with his bits there, and I'm like, how did you do that? Because one fake move and it's just like carving wood. You have to cut out a section, glue a new block on, and then re-whittle it down. It's insane what they used to do. And that's why I love those pieces. And I wanted to teach myself. Granted, I didn't teach myself that old school the way to do it, but working with waxes and carving and machining the joints for it to fit nice and pretty and stuff. Instead of just, I think nowadays, any sculptor, any young person who wants to get in the toy industry, you just immediately jump to digital. There is no more traditional stuff, really. There are a few companies that still do traditional portraits and then digitally shrink them down to be a nice small scale, but look really, really pretty. But I think they only do that just for because they enjoy. It's a toy company that does enjoy the traditional stuff still, but I can't see that lasting much longer. With how easy it is to just email files everywhere, and everybody can have a printer and print their figure right at home. It's so crazy.
For sure. All right. Well, we are a little over our time. Oh, well, Noel's got a question that'll probably have to be our last one, just because I don't want to keep Adam a whole lot longer. He's been really generous with his time today. But
No
Noel,
worries.
why don't you go ahead and hit
I
us
wasn't
with
actually going to ask a question. I was going to comment that the miniature companies that I work with still do pretty much a mix of traditional and digital. So you have a lot of sculptors who are still working in things like green stuff and Abe's putty, and they're working at, really tiny scales. They're working like, 15 millimeter to 72s.
Oh, wow. That's interesting. Okay. I know a few like the little miniature sculptor artists, but they're just digital guys. And I've done some tiny little figurines myself too, just digitally. I've never tried sculpting something out of the green putty at that scale. I have books about it, and I've seen photos of what those old like Warhammer figures were done
Mhm.
traditionally. It's incredible. But
The
I've never done.
Warhammer stuff, the Reaper stuff. There's actually a fairly extensive number of companies. They're just all really small, and it's a small little niche.
Okay. I mean, no matter what, I think traditional old school ways of doing things will always be around, but they will just become less industry standard and more like what we do at this shop. It's more of a niche for people seeking those things for their projects, because everywhere else offers the normal, the CG, the 3D printed, right?
Thank you, Noel. Okay, well, I can go ahead and close things down then, I guess, and then maybe we can take a quick step back into the shop if you still have the time to
Yeah,
show us
do
that
it.
one thing. Okay, well, let's go ahead and do that, and I'll thank everybody for joining us for this. And now I'm going to end the recording.